Hello and welcome. You've seen this happen, right? A quiet, overlooked neighborhood suddenly becomes the place to be. But what if I told you that a huge chunk of that new wealth wasn't actually created by the property owners, but by all of us? Today, we're going to dig into the hidden gold of our cities and a debate that's been shaping them for over 150 years. And it all kicks off with a really simple question. Just think about it for a second. Your city invests taxpayer money, our money, to build a brand new subway stop or a gorgeous public park. The very next day, the apartments overlooking that park are suddenly worth twice as much. The owner didn't lift a finger, did nothing, yet they've just pocketed a fortune. So is that fair? Who really earned that windfall? This question is not new at all. In fact, authorities in Turkey have been wrestling with this exact problem since the Ottoman Empire. At the very heart of the issue is this concept called urban rent. Understanding it is absolutely key to understanding how our cities get built, who really profits from them, and frankly, who pays the price. So to really get a handle on this century-and-a-half-old debate, we've got to start with the core concept. What in the world is this urban rent? Let's break it down. Okay, put simply, urban rent is the unearned jackpot. It's that extra value that just kind of appears, not because the owner put in a new kitchen, but because the city government decided to build a school next door, or, and this is a big one, rezoned the area to allow for taller buildings. It's value literally created by the community that just happens to land in a private pocket. And this slide right here perfectly separates the two. On one side, you have the value an owner creates themselves, building the house, doing renovations, planting a garden. That's earned. But on the other side, you have value that's created by a public decision, a new highway exit, a change in the zoning code. That's urban rent. This whole long debate is about what we should do with the value on the right side of this chart. So, given that this value is created by the public, it's really no surprise that authorities have tried to get a piece of the action. For 150 years, they've been developing a whole toolkit of policies designed to share this wealth. So let's take a look at the main tools they've used over the years. And wow, this isn't some newfangled idea. This timeline shows the conversation started way back in the Ottoman era. As early as 1848, there were rules about chipping in land for new roads. By 1902, they had a direct tax on these value increases. So yeah, the tools have changed, but the basic goal has pretty much stayed the same for over a century. Throughout this long history, it really boils down to three main tools that have been the go-to methods. We've got expropriation, the land readjustment contribution, and the value increment tax. Let's dig into how each one is supposed to work. Okay, first up, expropriation, or kamulaştırma. This one is the most direct approach. If the government needs your land for, say, a new highway, it can basically force the sale. Now, here is the crucial part. The price it pays is based on the land's value before anyone even whispers that a highway is coming. So all that future value created by that massive public project, it's captured by the public right from the get-go. Next, we have a tool with a totally different logic, the land readjustment contribution, or DOP. Instead of buying the land, this tool lets the city just take a chunk of it. And it can be a pretty significant chunk, today as much as 45%. But it's taken in exchange for something incredibly valuable. And this chart illustrates it perfectly. Instead of taking cash, the public takes a slice of the land itself. An owner gives up a percentage of their raw land. In return, the city uses that contributed land to build all the stuff that turns empty fields into a real neighborhood. Roads, schools, parks. And that in turn makes the owner's remaining 55% of the land way, way more valuable. The third tool is probably the one that makes the most intuitive sense. Just tax the profit. It was known as shedafia. Back in 1914, if a public project made your property more valuable, the government took 25% of that profit. By 1939, that share had jumped to a massive 50%. It was a really powerful tool for decades. But then, look at this, in 1981, poof, it was essentially wiped off the books, leaving a huge hole in the public's toolkit. So we have these tools, and some of them sound pretty powerful on paper, right? So why does this problem of unearned wealth just keep happening? Well, it turns out the system has some really big fundamental flaws. Let's look at the biggest problem with that DOP system. It's based on the area of the land, not its value, which is kind of crazy. Imagine two plots of land. Parcel A is huge, but it's only zoned for a little house. Parcel B is tiny, but the city rezones it for a massive skyscraper. Under the DOP system, both owners give up the same percentage of their land. But the owner of Parcel B is going to make astronomically more money. The system treats them the same. when the public's decision has created this massive difference in wealth. You know, back in 1979, there was this moment when this all could have changed. A bold, sweeping new law was passed by the Turkish parliament, and its goal was to fix these gaps once and for all, creating a system to tax value increases from any public decision, not just big projects, but simple zoning changes too. But it never became law. The president at the time vetoed the bill, and his reason for the veto? Well, it gets right to the very heart of this 150-year-old debate. The argument was that taxing a paper profit, the value increase you get from a zoning change before a single brick is laid or a sale is made, was an unconstitutional attack on private property rights. And after that veto, the political mood changed and the bill was defeated. Just like that, the most serious attempt to solve the urban rent problem was put on a shelf, and it sat there collecting dust for the next 40 years. That decision left a massive hole in the system that's still shaping our cities today. But hey, the story doesn't just end there. In recent years, planners have been exploring some new, more flexible tools. And one of the most promising is this idea of transferring development rights. The concept is called transfer of development rights. Now, it sounds a little complicated, but the idea is actually kind of genius. Imagine you own a beautiful, historic building that the city wants to preserve. So they tell you you can't tear it down and build something bigger. Instead of you just losing all that potential value, this system lets you sell your unused right to build to somebody else. So how does it work? It's actually a pretty simple 3-step process. First, the city protects a historic site. Step 2, the owner of that site gets a certificate that represents the development potential they can no longer use. And step 3, a developer somewhere else in the city, in an area planned for growth, buys that certificate. This purchase allows them to build a taller, more valuable building than the normal rules would permit. It's a really clever way to preserve history without bankrupting the owners. So we've got all these tools, old and new, but they all seem to circle back to one huge, fundamental question. This is it. This is the core conflict, the constant tug of war we've been exploring. On one side, you've got the public good, the idea that value created by the whole community should benefit the whole community. And on the other, you have private property rights, the idea that an owner has the right to profit from what's theirs. Finding the right balance between these two is one of the toughest challenges in city building. And that really leaves us with the big question for the future, doesn't it? As our cities keep growing and changing, this whole debate is only going to get more intense. How do we create policies that encourage growth and investment, while also making sure that the benefits are shared fairly and that our cities work for everyone who calls them home? Because ultimately, when you boil it all down, the source material makes one thing crystal clear. The immense value locked inside our cities isn't the creation of any one person. It's the product of generations of collective effort, public investment, and just shared life. So the real debate isn't if this value exists, but how we, all of us together, decide to share it. Thanks for watching.